come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India at home. Lords goes wild.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the 81 All Out podcast. This is Siddhartha Vaidyanathan at Sidvi on Twitter. And today I'm joined by two 81 All Out regulars to talk about India's test series against England that's coming up. So we have Ashoka, who's at ABVan on Twitter. Hi, Ashoka.
Hey, Sidvi. Good to be here.
Hi. And we also have Mahesh, who is at Cornered on Twitter and who I'm sure has been following Olympics badminton very closely. Hi, Mahesh.
Hi, I'm very delighted that Taizoing won. So I'm really sorry for the Indian fans.
Are you being anti-national here? Or
No, Taizoing is an exception. I think if Modi understood any bit of badminton, even he would admit it's not anti-national.
Okay, I will.
We have not even begun this podcast, man. Come on, give it some time.
I will take it that you're talking about Prime Minister Modi and not Lalit Modi or Nirav Modi. But I think Lalit Modi can start a badminton league easily. I mean, anyway, nothing is happening.
There is one, right? There is one.
No. What Lalit Modi starts will not be like what it is. Come on, he will take it global. He'll take it big. Anyway, back to the point. As I said, we are here to talk about India's test series against England. 5 tests coming up. Hopefully 5 tests coming up. Given the situation with COVID and all that is happening, there's actually been quite a strange prelude to the series, actually. I mean, given that it's 5 tests, given that it's between two of the big three in test cricket, the focus has been either on the COVID cases with the quarantines and with all the information/misinformation that's coming out, or there has also been the other diversion of another Indian team playing in Sri Lanka and various other things. Also, of course, the English cricket is now in the middle of the 100, the new tournament that the marketing whiz kids have designed, and they're now trying to promote it to bring in new audiences to the game. We're going to touch a bit on the big picture before we get to the actual preview of the series. Before that, let me say that, thank you again for listening and contributing to Ko-fi, that is ko-fi.com/81allout. Many of you have even, signed up for a monthly, contribution where you chip in a bit every month, and we're really grateful for that. And others have gone with a one-time contribution. So anything that you put in really helps the show, and we're also grateful that you're helping us. So anyway, let's just, guys, touch on COVID. I mean, is this like the norm now? I mean, is this how cricket is going to be? And also earlier when there was cases of COVID, everyone was, it used to be a point of outrage and tension and saying, how did this happen? How can this person test positive? Who let this happen? But now, I mean, given the number of cases, it just seems like now it's like an injury, right? Like this guy got injured and is not playing. It's like that guy got COVID and now has to quarantine. It seems that's the way it's going.
Yeah, we have lost count of the waves, right? Like, I don't know which wave we are in. Someone is saying 4th wave is coming. We've not even entered the 3rd wave. So I think, so this is how the world is for the foreseeable future, at least. And to run cricket now, there is an extra burden of, I'll say a burden of responsibility on the organizers and the players and the way they handle the sport. Not just from the point of view of how to conduct tournaments, which they have to now incorporate within their calendar, like who plays who, but now the thing becomes like what is the situation of the country, how it is doing in terms of the virus, and how is the vaccination there, and what kind of security protocol would you allow crowds, or how much % of the crowds that you allow. So all this now becomes a matter of procedure, SOP, for the boards, right? So there is a lot of context even before the series starts. And to allow, on top of that, you have players and their health that you take care of, and the constant being in bubble. It may look like 10 years before, since the last series began and when they saw their loved ones and all that. So yeah, I can feel bad for the sport itself, because everybody is going to have to adhere to all this. And it looks like that in foreseeable future we are going to stick to bubbles and all protocols with regards to players, organizers, commentators, crowds, etc. So that's how I think the game is going to go now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even keep up with, it could happen in the morning of a game. I mean, I think West Indies and Australia, there was a match that was supposed to happen. The toss happened even, and then after that there was a case, and everyone had to basically, the thing had to be called off, the match had to be called off or postponed. And it's like this new, I mean, cricket already has some 20 different variables to contend with. This seems to be this new variable that has come, which nobody can even foresee or predict. No, I think even, Karthikeya is not here, but I don't think even he has developed a model to predict COVID. Mahesh?
No, I actually think, one, we're getting used to it, but, looking back at it, even from the first series after COVID, which was the West Indies tour of England, right? I mean, I'm just surprised how well it was handled, the whole quarantine, and there was no incident at all in that series. And that was the first one, right? At a time when the number of cases in the UK society was exploding. And I think cricket has handled itself pretty well. In fact, cricket has been quite greedy and have kind of gotten away with it. We held a whole IPL in Dubai. We got even greedier or nearly held a complete IPL even in India when cases were exploding. In Australia, where the lockdowns have been extremely stringent on its citizens, even though the number of cases overall have been pretty low, they held a test series without even changing a normal arrangement. They had a normal cricket summer where each of the venues were used. When England came to India, only specific venues were used. When West Indies went to England, only specific venues were used. Australia, in fact, Cricket Australia didn't even bother about it. They held a normal cricket summer. So in that sense, I mean, we started the podcast with the badminton thing. I mean, I've been a fan of badminton, and I sorely miss badminton, especially living in Singapore. One of the joys of living in Singapore is to be able to have access to Malaysia and Indonesia, which are the two largest badminton centers. So to watch an Indonesian Open is probably bigger than watching Wimbledon, right? It is that big. It's a celebration. Now that's been shut down for more than a year. And I've been missing my sort of badminton, so to say. But cricket, I'm not really missing. In fact, I don't have enough time for cricket. That's how much cricket is happening. So in a way, I think cricket has kind of come to terms with it a lot better and has learned to live with it a lot better, even before the governments were ready to do it. So initially, perhaps people are cynical, but I think we got to be happy with the fact that there's cricket to look forward to.
Yeah, and talking about too much cricket is happening. I mean, India has basically sent two teams, right? One to England to get ready for the Test series, and then the one day and T20 team played in Sri Lanka. I mean, played a full-fledged, white ball series in Sri Lanka, and which also went off without any disruptions and all that. So you think that is something that we can expect to see more in terms of simply because, number one, I mean, not every team may have the depth to do that, or even the the power and muscle of the BCCI to pull such thing off. But you think that going forward we could see Test red ball and white ball having the division, and if so, is that actually a good thing for the sport or a bad thing? Because then again, as we have seen before, it's sort of trying to focusing on specialists, right? It is trying to find who is good to play with sport, and then there may be players who eventually say that, okay, I'm just going to go white ball, I'm just going to go red ball. Hopefully there are people who say that, but yeah. What's your thinking on that? Is that like a trend that is going to continue?
So there are two things, right? Like, is it good for the sport? Probably yes, because more than anything, what cricket is jostling for, it's not the formats. We have like 4 formats now, but the resources are shared between formats, and that is the one that causes all the scheduling hassles and whatnot if you go down the line with that argument. So maybe having parallel tournaments is good for the sport, but is it a norm? That is where I don't know, because I am kind of cynical when I see in the world of cricket. Maybe England and India can do it. I'm even doubtful if Cricket Australia can do it. They may put out a squad, but is that going to be good? And also, you have seen the example in what happened in the Sri Lanka-India series, right? Like with COVID happening, then the contest becomes like one side will obviously be weakened. In this case, you can say that it is the Indian side that was weakened, and it showcased their depth, that they were even able to compete in all three T20s and whatnot. But let's assume that if the Sri Lankan players had gotten the COVID, 5-6 people, I mean, where would they bring people from, and what would be the quality of that contest for the viewers, right? And that is a question mark. And I mean, with only two nations right now able to afford this kind of an arrangement, I don't see this becoming a norm. Maybe because of COVID, they may force this, and we may end up watching a lot of contests where the quality obviously drops and whatnot. In the short term, that's the pain. In the long term, if you give a lot of players exposure to play ODIs and internationals, maybe the countries develop the muscle of having 22 or 30 players on the roster who are good to go at an international stage. But that takes time. So is it good for the sport? Yes, obviously. Will this become a norm? It may be forced, and if that is the case, we'll take a short-term hit, and probably in the long term, nations may able to cope with that. But I seriously doubt that. I mean, I don't see South Africa or let's say Sri Lanka or West Indies putting up like two squads of full strength.
Purely from an economic point of view, I'm sure this series really helped Sri Lankan cricket from a financial point of view. I mean, and if India or England can put out, teams to go and compete in, say, South Africa or to go and play series in West Indies, South Africa, I think from an economic point of view, it's actually good. It's in a way it's like the big three, propping up the small six, which from the cricketing sense. So it is good, right, Mahesh?
Yeah, it is good, but the small six also have to do that, right? Like it's not that you're giving more cricket to the big three. The other nations also have to develop the same amount of muscle for us to have 4 viable formats going on. Because personally, I like the 100. I was skeptical about it, but I've come to like it. I've seen a couple of games. It looks good. I mean, you can go ahead with it.
It's T20, right? I mean, essentially, with like this funky jazzy rules here and there.
Yeah. I mean, they have to refine the rules at some point. Come to think of it, they have to refine the rules for T20 also, but that's a longer argument. But anyways, I'm saying if that is what is going to happen, your resource management has to be better. And this is one way where you can build new resources and have specialists for each format. And that's a great avenue is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think it will be a norm. Like Ashoka mentioned, I don't think there are enough teams with the depth to be sending different team for different formats, and I don't think it suits the interest of the administrators as well. They want to have control over the whole sort of ecosystem. So if you create different sort of teams for different formats, then they're going to have spare time and they can freelance somewhere else, which BCCI doesn't like at all. So that's one of the factors. The other factor, I mean, the economic argument is a little, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Like if, for instance, if the alternative for cricket, Sri Lankan Cricket Board is not to have an Indian team at all, this is better. But once you set this precedence, what's going to happen is that beyond the big three, if India has to play a series in England and they also are obligated to send a team to South Africa, they'll conveniently time it together, send a test team to England, and send a one-day team, a second-order one-day team to South Africa and fulfill that obligation. So what seems like a bonus is actually not a bonus. It's depriving of your primary revenue. And I mean, in this case, it's a one-off and that's understandable. But in the long run, then, all the big three teams will keep doing that. Like Australia will play Afghanistan in Darwin and Keynes with a second run team during the winter or so on. So I don't think that's a good thing, to be honest.
Because it dilutes the competition, you're saying?
Not so much the competition. It basically creates a different commercial interest. So basically the caste system will widen. So the top three will continue to get richer, and they'll continue to screw the poorer countries, like what happened with the 2011 South Africa series, for instance, when BCCI blackmailed CSA to get rid of their president. Otherwise, they said, we'll not talk. Now, next time, they'll not do that so blatantly. They'll say, okay, we'll send you a team, but not the first-run team. So now this can get into a bit of a... I know they could potentially have an IPO and a test series with Bangladesh where, your Kohli and Rohit Sharma don't play. So now I don't think those incentives are aligned. And I mean, I'll be very happy. I'll be the happiest person if all three formats become different sports, but not this way.
But in terms of the bridging the gap itself, don't you think that a second 11 Indian team playing Afghanistan, say in Test cricket even, while the first 11 plays a one-day series somewhere. Don't you think that the test may become more exciting? Say if Indian second 11 plays Afghanistan in Bangalore or Bombay.
No, if that's my point, right? If you see it as a bonus, like if India plays one test versus Afghanistan otherwise, but if they're going to play a 3-test series, then that's fine. But what will rather happen is that India will send their second 11 for that one test. So then, then it becomes a cheap substitute for BCCI, right? Then they can hold on to the big stars to play the big matches and use the depth of their team to play the second run. No, I mean, Afghanistan is not a good example, but let's say Sri Lanka, for instance. I mean, it is revenue for the board. If a Kohli and a Rohit Sharma plays in that series, the number of Indians watching there, the value of that product is so much more. I mean, that's the whole idea of a home series for the board, right? When boards are begging for Indian teams to come and visit them, the commercial value of that is insane. To reduce that commercial value suits BCCI's interest.
Yeah, it's quite tricky and it's interesting. I mean, I didn't watch the entire India-Sri Lanka thing, but it seemed like it was the matches were pretty close, and I was watching that. I watched that game where Deepak Chahar and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar took India home. But yeah, let's wait and watch. But on the other flip side, Ashoka brought up the 100. I'm sort of forget the form. I mean, there is one whole sort of section of the English press that is talking about the format and the whole economics of the counties and how, they bought into it when they shouldn't have, etc., etc. There's also this lament of the game as we knew it is over. All that is fine. But what I find quite frustrating at times and I understand why it happens in the UK, because cricket is not the number one sport there by a long shot. And cricket is constantly competing with football for popularity. And the people who are in the cricket space it is in their interest for cricket to become more popular. So they want cricket to be on BBC. They want cricket to, because then they'll get more newspaper space to write about it. They'll get more footage. They'll get more opportunities, basically. But why should the rest of the world fall into that trap with that narrative? Indian journalists, for instance, are discussing why the 100 is good for the game because of but that's, I mean, I find that whole perspective a little warped. I mean, Indian journalists can actually look at it. The popularity of cricket in India and the popularity of cricket in UK is not comparable. So you can actually bring forth an argument that is far more, global and far more widespread, rather than looking at how a English mainstream journalist will look at it. Isn't that quite baffling for you guys also?
No, I think that narrative about the shorter formats here to prop up cricket, which is dying, is a narrative that we've also bought into. While the absolute number in India, even for Test cricket, is much higher, but when you compare it to a T20, it's much smaller. So, even outside of the 100, it is not an argument that someone like Harsha Bhogle is not made, right? So it's very easy for people to lap up that argument because it sounds so convincing where it is not at all true. It's like comparing, let's say, a Fossil, a watch company, to Apple and saying, oh, Apple's market cap is 2 trillion. Why is Fossil? No, these are different products. These are different markets. The size of the market will be different. Test cricket doesn't have to be so big. It has been sustaining itself without being so big for so long. Now, because of the commonality of the resources, now, they want Kohli to play T20, right? Even though he's not a great T20 batsman. So that is where the whole conflict of interest starts. And therefore, they start selling this bogus sort of narrative. I mean, I found this I think it's all gimmicks. There's no question about it. But my point is, especially for people who already bought into T20, what's the big deal? It reduces 1 ball per over, keeps the same number of ad slots between overs. It's perfect, right? That's the way it's going to go. If you love T20,
I love it.
If you have a problem with the 100, I don't see what your problem is.
No, I love the 100. I mean, I watched a couple of matches and I think it's superb. And the only objection to whatever Mahesh said is, he said Kohli is not a great T20 batsman. I vehemently object to that. I want all the listeners to know that we are not anti-Kohli. Please don't kill us. Especially me, I am in India.
Sorry. Let me clarify. He's not even a very good T20 batsman. I think great is a bit of a step up.
Okay. We need KD for that discussion here. Sorely being missed, Kartikeya. But okay, let's come to this thing. Okay, now the whole issue here. What has happened over the last 10, 15 years is the point that you brought up, right? Between the fossil and an apple. It's like every match in cricket is now judged on either the number of people in the stands or the number, and of course, and the number of people watching it on TV. Now, if Test cricket is not that kind of a sport, what is the alternative to value that sport? Because obviously, all of us who watch Test cricket know that there is fundamentally a much more intrinsic benefit to watching it. There is like far-reaching benefits in like the way it builds community, the way it builds passion, the way it sort of, there is a certain organic love for the game that it adds that many other formats just don't, at least for me. But what is the value that you're putting to that? What is the value that you're putting, for instance, to somebody who is not watching every ball of Test cricket and is not in that statistic that is coming under the TRPs, but is still so passionate about it to, check ball by ball every minute, or to, listen to every single podcast about it, read every single piece about the piece, talk to everybody that they know about it. But that is not coming in the numbers. So how do you value that?
No. I mean, we don't even see, this is a bit of a trap that we all fall into, that, while it may not be commercially great, it still adds so much value to the society. I mean, that's a great argument. But my point is, it is also commercially valuable. It has sustained generations and generations of cricketers, first-class cricketers, first-division cricketers. Even now, I mean, it's not like Chennai has a first-division structure with corporate jobs only after IPL. They've had it forever. So this whole notion, I mean, Test cricket has survived world wars. It has survived Great Depression. It has survived all kinds of things. To even make an economic case against Test cricket is the kind of thing that someone like Harsha Bhogle will indulge in, right? Where there's no honesty in that discussion. Now, what is the economic case against Test cricket? If you leave out the commonality of resources, there is no economic case against it. It's not like Test cricket is struggling. In fact, you can argue it's worse now because of the Big Three takeover. But in the 90s, for instance, Zimbabwe was coming through. Sri Lanka had come through out of nowhere. New Zealand was getting competitive. So what is the argument, economic argument against Test cricket? I've never understood this. So for instance, take badminton, for instance. Like a Lin Dan, who's one of the most supreme athletes in the world. I have seen him win Asian Championship and get a $10,000 check. Now, you can argue that would $10,000 motivate an athlete to perform at that level? No, the answer is there. You have a Lin Dan who does it. Now, so you cannot say that just because something doesn't make as much money as the most popular sport, that somehow the quality of that sport will dilute. It doesn't. And cricket was actually a rich sport. Test cricket was a rich sport even before IPL. Of course, IPL has come and taken it to a whole different level. Okay, let me put it this way. If you had one cancellation of an Ashes series, one cancellation of a marquee sort of Test series, it doesn't threaten the existence of the sport. One cancellation of IPL, it threatens the very existence of the format. Or the tournament. That's how high the stakes are. No, that's like a high risk, high reward thing, right? So, okay, that's my first point, that there is no economic case against Test cricket. The second question is, how do you value it? There is a value. There is a value for Test crickets. Let's say, for instance, if you have to consolidate all of Test cricket's broadcast rights into a central thing, let's say there are, I don't know, 1 million Test cricket fans around the world. You make them pay $10, they will happily pay $10. That means $10 million every month, right? So the point is it's inefficiently administered, and they don't want to do anything about it because it suits their interests. See, at the end of the day, all the administrators can cry about the death of Test cricket and why they have to launch 100 and they have to launch an IPL to prop up cricket and so on. If you're so insecure about it, if someone like Lalit Modi comes and says, okay, you give me Test cricket, I'll buy it, they will not let go of it, right? Because that is their golden goose.
So Willow TV, you had said you had found out like Willow TV subscribers, right? How much is that? Some 2.5 million.
I forgot the number, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's not far-fetched to think that there are 1 million fans of Test cricket who will pay $10 a month for broadcast. That's a good number to have. And
no, that's just a basic number to start with. If you let the free competition, free markets to compete against each other, you might even find a higher value, right? And there's no equivalent to that. And what about the milking rights? See, so far, none of the cricket boards have done a good job of archiving. What if I make the 2005 series documentary exclusively made for Netflix and available? Or the 2001 India-Australia series exclusively made and available? Or 1960 Tide Test, if you have to milk that, the value of that is insane. You cannot. There is not an equivalent of that in any other sport, or certainly not in T20.
And the whole foundation on which the death of Test cricket is based is also like fundamentally fully flawed. It's not like in 1960s. You were in say New Zealand or in they were like every single match was packed out with people. In West Indies, for instance, in England, that Ian Botham Test, which people are talking about every single day. I mean, even now it's like 40 years since that Headingley Test. If you see the highlights of the Headingley Test, there are vast number of empty seats over there. I mean, this is like you're talking about one of the greatest performances of all time. So the whole foundation that back then everybody used to watch every test, but now nobody is watching tests, that is itself fundamentally flawed. And secondly, I think the fundamental allure of Test cricket is the whole history that it's coming with, right? And the whole how it builds, how every series builds on the other and adds to like a texture of the sport, adds more stories, more legends. That there has to be a way to get the value out of that. I mean, of course, there are people still writing books on tests, and there are people who have written several books on tests, documentaries, movies. But how do you consolidate all that into making the sport, loving the sport? Like, for instance, Major League Baseball put up radio recordings from the 1930s and 40s. So if you go to YouTube, you can go and find games in the 1940s. You can find the live radio commentary of that game and listen to it. And you go and see the number of comments there. Like there are like some thousands of comments about a game from the 1940s and 50s. People are actually saying, I was at that game. They're remembering stuff from that game. I mean, that is the real value. I mean, that is like, and Major League Baseball is putting it on YouTube, finding ways to put ads on it and monetizing it, right? So that they've found a way to make money out of it. Cricket hasn't done anything of that sort. So, I think, it's important to, like, whenever you hear, just a caution, whenever you hear like death of Test cricket, there are multiple things to think about and why it may actually be in the interest of those saying that for Test cricket to die. So a lot of times I feel the people who are claiming the death of Test cricket actually want Test cricket to die and are desperately sad it is not dead yet. So
I think we should do a separate episode on this, because I have a lot of things to say about this. I mean, this whole notion that Test cricket was some glorious game. Like for instance, Bangladesh as a test nation is a recent concept. Zimbabwe as a test nation is a recent concept. New Zealand as a competitive test nation is a recent concept. So India as a competitive test nation itself is a relatively new sort of history. So what are we talking about? So a lot of this narrative is influenced by people from Australia and England, and we have a tendency to mimic that. And in their society, there's no doubt that cricket has gone down in value in mainstream sort of consciousness. There's absolutely no doubt. That's a combination of many things, not just the fall of cricket itself. That's a combination of the rise of football. That's a combination of the massive migration that's happened. So the average Australian or average English person, the identity of that person has changed over these 40, 50 years dramatically. So in many ways, it's a longing for that old white majority sort of life, right? So it's an absolute trap, and we have no business falling for it, especially coming from the subcontinent who have only seen the best days post 90s. Like we don't have Gavaskar's 10,000 run. We don't have the footage of his last test, the innings that everybody keeps talking about.
Gavaskar's 10,000 run, I think Pakistan TV has. DD doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So for us, as particularly as subcontinent fans, we only saw cricket live from the 90s. So there is no golden era in our mind. Like even the last time we were talking with Suresh Menon, who's read so much about cricket, who's watched cricket at the ground, but no matter, even if you're a full-time cricket journalist, you didn't watch as much cricket in the 80s as a kid in the 90s did. So what golden era is that? Beyond England and Australia, this narrative doesn't even apply. And even there, it's a bit of a bogus narrative.
I mean, the thing about what I always think about when people talk about Test cricket is like, see, Ranji Trophy, right? Like ever since I have been following cricket, hardly anybody has gone to Ranji. Ranji Trophy matches have basically been played in empty bowls. I mean, occasionally you'll find 1,000 people at a Ranji match, but maybe, that is an exception. But who can say that Ranji Trophy does not have value? I mean, the whole base of Indian cricket and the whole depth and the foundation and everything is thanks to Ranji Trophy. I mean, if you don't have Ranji Trophy, then the whole thing collapses. Like the whole Indian funneling of the talent and funneling of thing just collapses, right? Then it's basically thanks to junior cricket and Ranji Trophy and everything that all these players are coming through. So, I mean, if there is value in that, then there is value in the higher step of Ranji Trophy, which is Test cricket, right? I mean, that's all I can.
Yeah, we are also obliged to thank the IPL, which has also unearthed so many golden talents.
By the way,
like you look at the current test team, like Abhimanyu Ishwaran, where did he come from? He came from the system. He came from
Mohammad Siraj, same. I mean, all of them, and IPL without Ranji Trophy might also collapse. By the way, I think will collapse rather. So
exactly.
So anyway, so yeah, I mean, we should definitely do another podcast for it. So let's get to the matter on hand, which is the Test series. I mean, we have taken quite a bit of time to get into it, but also partly because the build-up has been so tepid. I mean, there's been one warm-up game, and other than that, it's just been quarantine or people not really. I mean, even the English newspapers hardly have any previews on it. I mean, the Indian newspapers are, of course, busy with Olympics and everything else and the other series. But very, very tepid build-up for this series. And who knows? I mean, hopefully everything will go off well, but we may well have further postponements and other logistical issues because of COVID. But first, let's starting off the big news that came out yesterday. Player who will not be playing in the series is Ben Stokes. He has decided to take an indefinite break from cricket. There's a finger injury there, but there's also for taking a break for mental stress and trying to rejuvenate. I think it's an extremely important step for Ben Stokes to not only take a break, of course, he should take a break and hopefully he feels better soon, but to also come out and publicly state that this is the reason. I mean, often in the past, many players have cited personal reasons or whatever, and eventually when it has actually been an issue of mental health. So I'm glad that ECB and Ben Stokes have come out with this, saying that I think it'll help different players to look at this and say that a player as good as Ben Stokes, of the caliber of Ben Stokes, if he needs a break, then obviously everybody at some point of time needs a break as well. I think both should get behind this. And yeah, the amount of cricket being played and living in this bubble, it is definitely going to take a toll on players. And I think going forward, more and more players should be emboldened to take a break. It's not easy playing a game like cricket that requires so much, that gives you so much of time for introspection, and that where failure is so common, for you to just be around in the bubble and to keep thinking about it, and it eats into you. So I'm glad that this happened. I'm hoping Ben Stokes gets well soon, and it'll be a big loss for the Test series. It would have been great to watch him play. I mean, such a fabulously talented player, such a batting, bowling, adds so much of depth to the England side. I mean, just by picking Ben Stokes, then they have so many options to choose from. But what are your guys' thoughts about this, man? I mean, I'm hoping that the BCCI actually realizes that this is a big issue and encourages players to also step back when they need to.
And this is a board, ECB is a board which has always, I mean, from the time that there has been this COVID outbreak, they have encouraged people to go on a rotation policy. They have rested players. And despite all that, I mean, if he has to take a call, then that must have been a big problem for him. Not just the finger injury, I mean, the mental issues and whatever he's struggling with right now. It's a great call from a player, because it's easy to, put a bravado and say, I am this kind of guy. I can't back down. I am possibly the greatest all-rounder that ever was. That might be a factor in his head, right? But him to take a call shows that he has come to terms with whatever that is troubling him, and he said that this is the right call for me to take. And sure, I mean, not just the ECB. I think the entire cricket world should back such moves from not just Ben Stokes. Anybody who puts their hand up and says, "Boss, there are some stuff that I have to deal with. I'm taking a step back and I'll deal with this." So players like that deserve our support, right? Not just as administrators, just as fans also. It is good that we take cognizant of such decisions and, say, okay, fine, right, that's what he is doing right now. And that, I mean, the player deserves the space that they require. Not just in their private lives, but also in their social media and whatnot, that we respect their privacy and let them deal with the issues, and then hopefully come back and make the game a better place. So that's my feeling on it. And yeah, surely without him, this series, I mean, it's a loss for England. They are going to miss the balance, because I mean, any team would like to have Ben Stokes. Why would they not want to have a great all-rounder in their team? So yeah, England will have to deal with it, but it's a great loss actually. Yeah.
I mean, the moment you have Ben Stokes, you can play 5 bowlers in every game, right? I mean, you just pick 4 other bowlers. Ben Stokes will also bowl, he will bowl enough. I mean, he's good enough to probably be a third seamer, but yeah, he can be your 5th bowler in all conditions, and he can bowl like such long spells. So why not? And he can give you double hundreds on his day. So, that's like the biggest asset you can have. Yeah, I mean, I'll link a piece that Gideon Hay wrote in the Cricket Monthly a while ago about how, so many players in the past, you read their biographies, and when they're talking about, their careers, he gives an example of Ken Barrington probably being one of the early players who suffered from mental health, but did not go to the extent of, actually calling it that, because back then it was a different world and people approached mental health differently. And he says, you read all these biographies and players' books, it's very clear that almost like so many of them have had this issue, but just have not had either the capacity or the social support to actually come out and say that and take breaks. And so it's good that rather than reading about the harrowing time that Ben Stokes faced in his autobiography, which will probably come out 10 years later, it's good that in the here and now, he's actually decided to take this break and make his, help his life. So that way, I'm happy that the sportsmen today, whether it's Simone Biles or Ben Stokes or Naomi Osaka, all of them are basically, at the top of their game and all-time greats, but, are still, I think it takes that much courage to actually step back, because a sportsman eventually is driven by ego, right? And a lot of them, to succeed in sport, you need that level of ego. But then to take such a break also requires you to remove quite a bit of that ego and be self-aware to say that, okay, I mean, I need this.
It's a reflection of the society as well, right? I mean, even in our, especially because of COVID, but even otherwise, this is also the time when even in my own social circle, I see a lot more people sort of reaching out to therapy, and even people who considered it a stigma earlier, like particularly men, for instance, who thought it was beyond them. They can just somehow manage their feelings. At least because of COVID, you see a lot more openness about it. There's a lot, there's a very clear momentum in the society, more acceptance of it. And it's good that our sports stars are doing it. Then, like people who are following that will realize that it's absolutely normal. If someone like Ben Stokes could openly say that and go work on it, it probably matters as much to the fans as well. So in many ways, this creates a greater momentum. So I mean, I can personally say that during this time, I've gone for therapy as well, which I'm not sure if I would have done pre-COVID. And I can see a lot of my colleagues at work have done that as well. And they've all found it useful. I think it's very, very important to break this sort of barrier that this is something that only people who are going through some serious issue go through it, or, just take the stigma out of it completely. And sportsmen help us in a lot of ways. Sports stars at large help us in a lot of ways in this.
Yeah, we did a podcast with Abhinav Mukund. He has spoken in detail about this. He has written articles. He also spoke to us about it in the podcast. Akash Chopra who was also on the podcast, he has written about it. He basically says that the 2 years that he was out of the team and when he was trying to make a comeback, it was a serious mental stress for him. And, it took a while for him to recognize that. So, yeah, I mean, Virat Kohli has himself spoken about it, and he has come out. So I think, yeah, it's important for this issue to become a little more destigmatized and, saying things like people are not mentally tough because of this is ridiculous. I think the whole discourse around it should change. Mental toughness and mental health are, completely different. I mean, even the most strong-willed people can have their own moments of weakness and vulnerability. And I think everyone should be in a position to empathize with that and support. So, yeah, I mean, big loss for the series, but hopefully, that's just a small thing, and for Ben Stokes, hopefully it really helps him going forward. In terms of the two teams itself, just a bit of recent history. I actually covered that series in 2007 when India won in England, and somehow in my head I felt it was like, finally the barrier has been breached, and since 1986 India won a series, and it would be the first of many, but they haven't won a series after 2007 in England, and which is which is not that surprising actually, because given how England has been over the last 10 years, given how tough it is to play in England, and the bowling attack that England have had. I mean, you have Jimmy Anderson there, who is in English conditions, who's like probably like the greatest combination ever. I mean, Anderson in England. So it's not that surprising, but also at the same time, India did come pretty close. I mean, I would say, forget 2011. I mean, that was a wash. But, there were times in 2014. I mean, they won the Lord's Test in 2014. I don't think they would have won the series, but I think it could have been closer than what it turned out to be. 2018 definitely is not 4-1 is not reflective of how the contest went. I mean, Edgbaston, the first test was extremely close, and a few more minutes of batting, 15 minutes of batting from Kohli, and the result could have changed. Southampton was also close. The way the test went. India's bowlers, I mean, had they wrapped up England early. So, and of course, Sam Curran played a part in, and the lower order. Sam Curran and the lower order played a part in shoring up England through the series. So, I mean, what do you guys make of this last victory coming in 2007? Is that something that we should be surprised by? Because having said that, let me also mention that other teams have gone and won in England in that time period. So it's not like England have been invincible. England have been beaten there. I mean, Australia, of course, went and drew the series to get back the Ashes, but other teams have gone and won. Sri Lanka has gone and won. South Africa has won. So, it's not like yeah. I mean, it's not like India at home that has lost one series in 20 years. I mean, nearly 20 years. It's much more nuanced than that. What do you guys make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at the 2011 series, I think that was primarily a result of the fatigue of World Cup and IPL, right? I mean, you had the longest World Cup at that point in time, followed by the longest IPL, and everybody was injured or fatigued. And we did go to West Indies before that, but in a sense that I think the level of fatigue didn't help at all. And after a point of time, I don't think, I mean, it's probably, if Karthikeya were here, he would probably be taking me on for this. But, it seemed like even Dhoni kind of didn't have the energy to go through the whole thing, and he was going through the motions. We lost the bowling attack, Zahir was injured and Harbhajan was injured. So that 2011 was essentially, I'll put it down to fatigue.
Didn't we call RP Singh from Florida to take 5 wickets there? So
Yeah.
No, he didn't take 5 wickets. Because he took 5 wickets in the 2007 series, we called him there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he just took a wicket. Yeah, something like that. So that was a bad series. That was just an absolute, I wouldn't say just bad series, that back-to-back that and the Australia series. 2014 was okay. I mean, I don't think I think Sri Lanka is an exception, but otherwise teams that win there have better bowling attacks. And that's always been our problem. Even when Ishant took that 5-wicket all in Lords, that was a bit of a lottery sort of spell, because he just bowled short and English players tried to go after him. And he was not the Ishant of now. So I don't think we had the bowling depth to sort of win before 2018. So 2018 was probably the first time where we went there since 2007 with a reasonably good chance. And like you mentioned, all of them were close matches, and it could have gone either way. And both batting and bowling depth for England kind of took them through. And in fact, there's quite a bit of noise about the August test. In fact, the other day, Azharuddin sort of tweeted saying August tests are good for batting. And a lot of people sort of quote-tweeted that with his record in August in England, both in Test cricket and in county. And he's got a phenomenal record in August. And but I was just looking at the schedule for the 2018 series. They also started. I mean, the first test started on August 1st, so it's not like they were very different, and they were not high scoring. That was not a high scoring series. So it is not unique to this series. And my sense is that, but it's very hard to pick something out of. It's very hard to say that India could have done something better in 2018 have tilted the scales. They simply didn't have the depth that England had. That's probably the only difference.
We should talk a bit about the bowling because yes, India has found the bowling, and since 2017, 2018, I think that South Africa series, I think you can mark it down as the point where India's bowling attack really sort of became a little more settled. They won that test at the Wanderers. And then after that, went to England, but, if you see India's bowling, the pace bowlers especially, and this is, of course, a small sample that we have, but, their performance in West Indies, their performance in India, their performance in Australia is like one set, is like one supreme set. But then if you take New Zealand, that series, and if you take England, both 2018 and 2000, this World Test Championship, that one match that they played, seems to be another set. Now, it could be conditions. It could be, we had Michael Wagner come on after the India's tour to New Zealand and say that, perhaps India's bowlers bowl too quick, because in New Zealand, you have to bowl at an optimal pace. You have to vary your pace to get the swing. Maybe they went too quick and then weren't able to get the required swing. World Test Championship, again, they bowled extremely well. They cannot be only like really extraordinarily strict people will say they bowled badly. They bowled extremely well, but they still probably didn't bowl as well as the New Zealand bowlers could have. They created a lot of chances. It was a bowler-friendly test, but on balance, you can probably say New Zealand figured out the conditions better, whether it was because they played a series there before, whether it was because they are used to, they are such good bowlers who are used to adapting to these conditions. That's a different issue. But do you see this whole, do you think there's anything to this whole conditions thing, bowling in England and New Zealand and bowling in other conditions? Because in India, I don't think you can touch a Mohammad Shami or even often a Umesh Yadav when they're bowling in a test in India. They're just unplayable at times. But that level of unplayability hasn't come in, say, in New Zealand or in England. Do you think I'm making too much of it?
That's fundamentally the resources, right? Most of our seamers are very sort of hit the deck kind of bowlers. They're not particularly big swing bowlers. And all of them can swing. It's not like they can't, but they're not primarily swing bowlers. Like if you take the World Test Championship final as an example, New Zealand simply had more suitable resources for those conditions. And it's hard to say, like if you had Bhuvaneshwar Kumar fully fit and, playing test cricket, then you get that variety, so to say. But otherwise, it's hard to say. And these guys can swing. It's not like they cannot. And let's say, for instance, right now you have Shardul who can swing. And he can do the banana swing, for instance. But, it is very hard to make a case for the sake of variety to pick Shardul ahead of Siraj or Shami, who are objectively speaking much better fast bowlers. So that's basically the cards you're dealt with. You got great bowlers, but not as great for those conditions as England or New Zealand are blessed with, which is why you could win in Australia 2 back-to-back series, which, like an Anderson will find it much harder to get a 5-wicket haul than a Bumrah or a Shami. And that you basically, to be honest, these are also, apart from Ishan, the other bowlers are also relatively young in terms of the South Africa series you mentioned was the first series for Bumrah. And he's quite young. Our premier fast bowler is relatively young. And I'm sure he'll figure out a way of adapting his bowling to the conditions better as he gets more experience and so on. But Siraj is equally impressive and he's someone who's going to learn as well. And he's just had only one series. Shami is probably the only one, like the Bedi example, right? Shami is the guy who's going to say, this is the way I bowl, right? No matter the conditions, this is the way I bowl. And to be honest, he's got a right to say that. Even in South Africa, he's bowled well in second innings. And so you can't create, even with India's depth, I don't think we have enough depth to say that we can carry 4 different bowlers to Australia and England and New Zealand.
Yeah. And in the World Test Championship, there was a couple of spells where Shami was just beautiful. You just you watch that and you're like, this is fast bowling at a different level altogether. So, obviously there's no criticism of that. But now we have Shardul Thakur's media manager joining us. Ashoka, yeah, you can. Do you have anything to say?
No. I have nothing negative to say about Shardul. But to add to Mahesh's point, it becomes a bit much when you expect this level of versatility from your bowlers. they do swing and they are bowling at a full tilt at 140. Sometimes the results don't go your way, not just because you're not good or to exploit the conditions. It might also be that the bat misses the edge. The ball misses the edge of the bat, and it's as simple as that. And observationally, you can see that this bowling attack could have easily won the World Test Championship. I mean, there is nothing to me, even if the scorecard says that's a 7-wicket defeat or something. It was a very, very close game for me. I mean, so therefore, there's nothing. I mean, this is all nitpicking to my sense, what I'm saying, but we have got enough firepower to win in England. We have always had that, even in 2018, is what I thought.
So the question is, when you get to a place like England, do you play your best 3 bowlers irrespective, which is what India did in the World Test Championship final? Or do you say that these conditions require a certain kind of skill, which this bowler like Shardul comes with, and also he adds to the batting? So, that's the interesting question that they will be asking themselves, right? Like, do you back your Ishant and your Shami to do well irrespective and get you the wickets? Or do you say, oh, maybe Shardul's the guy to go for because he gets that swing?
It's not a pick your best 3 problem. India has a very, very bad tail end problem, and that will be exploited, especially against England, because they kind of give up a little of their bowling firepower to lengthen their batting order. And that has hurt us in 2018. And I will even say that in Australia, we hurt Australia because of the unique situation that we were in, where we were lengthening our batting order just because we didn't have players, and we were forced to play Shardul and Washington, who were quite handy bats. So that is kind of the opposition that we are against in this series. And that is the question that Indians need to ask themselves, because their bowling lineup looks good if you put Bumrah, Shami and Ishant as your first 3, and then you add Ashwin to the mix, that is 4. You'd want Jadeja because of an all-rounder slot, that's 5. Now, essentially, you have 2 spinners, which is that very productive for an England tour? Is something that's so. What decides your bowling order is essentially a hedge for your batting order as well. I mean, how much safety net could India pack within 11? That's the question that they'll be asking, because they are spoiled for choices. I mean, we are not even talking about Umesh. I mean, I was doing some stats guru thing. The guy, I think, for some years has been averaging less than 20, man, in Test cricket. Maybe, granted, he didn't play that many tests, but he's gotten like 50 wickets under 20. And that is the guy who's not even in any conversation.
I mean, a large portion of that might be in India, right? Where he's quite unplayable at times.
Yeah. And I saw him in this practice match as well. He was quite good. He's quite sharp, and that guy is not in the conversation. And now we are talking about Siraj taking Ishant or Shami's place or whatnot, because he's in the prime form of his life. And there is Shardul Thakur. So therefore, we are spoiled for choices when it comes to bowling. But what that does to our lower middle order and your lower order, that is where you will have the trade-offs. And that is where the team has to make 11, which makes sense for them to couch their batting, is what I would probably think.
Yeah, it's not an easy balance for them to strike. See, which is where the depth of England is such an advantage for them. Because if India has to play Shardul as a sort of swing bowler, it's too much of a gamble to get him as a third fast bowler. Right? You drop Shami or Ishant to get him there is too much of a gamble. Or alternatively, you drop Jadeja as the all-rounder and play Shardul as the swing bowler who could bat a bit, right? That way you prop up the batting and you prop up the bowling in terms of variety, but that leaves your batting a little too thin. Or alternatively, you play 4 bowlers, including Ashwin. And then you can't play Shardul as the third seamer. That becomes too risky. Then you prop up the batting with the 6th batsman. The defensive or the percentage bet would be probably to go with the 3 frontline seamers and Ashwin and probably the 6th batsman. Or if Kohli wants to be quite aggressive and give it his best shot, apart from Oval where we can afford to play both the spinners, perhaps it's worth a gamble. Given the history of 2018, it's absolutely, and in the World Test Championship, it's absolutely worth a gamble to go with Shardul as the 4th seamer.
Shardul as the 4th seamer and with Ashwin. So 5 bowlers.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Which leaves the batting a little thin, but not as thin as playing Siraj instead of Shardul.
Yeah. So Shardul basically has to save India with the bat and with the ball and the field and everywhere as
No,
usual.
I think Shardul gets picked primarily as a swing bowler. I think that's the main contribution he's going to bring in. Plus, the fact that he beefs up the batting a little bit works in his favor.
Yeah, I mean he's a much better batsman than any of the other bowlers, so that helps. So
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
can put in Umesh and sit out Bumrah also, because Umesh will.
Umesh
hit.
batting, you have huge faith in, is it?
I mean, why not? I mean, he can hit sixes. I have not seen Bumrah hitting sixes. He might have, I think, in some IPL game.
Didn't Bumrah score 50 in the first
50
match in Australia?
in Australia tour game. Yeah.
Dude, Umesh is a solid tonker, dude.
No. Umesh is a better batsman than the three for sure. I mean, Shami is hit or miss. Ishant actually is a good night watchman. Like good
He's
blocker.
not. He's not that.
Used to be.
He's not been.
Ishant
yeah,
used
he's
to
not,
be. Ishant's batting was better when his bowling was poorer.
I think West Indies tour he was amazing in that when India went and Bumrah blew them away. Ishant's batting was very good in that series. But after that, been a dip for sure.
Maybe that's because Roston Chase was bowling.
Yeah. Anyway, but there's a good article. I mean, it's an interview with Dale Steyn actually on bowling in England. I'll link it. There he talks about how the same thing where you have this seam up and you are running in and you're bowling and the ball is beating the bat. It's something that's a kind of an arousal for a fast bowler. But apparently, when their Kyle Abbott, his teammate from South Africa, who's played a lot of county cricket in England, he basically told him, that try the wobbly seam. Basically, he said, take the cross seam, and even with the new ball, try it and just let it go, and it'll swing. It'll do its own thing, but it won't swing as massively as your seam up. And he said, that is immediately great because all you need is to beat anyway a few inches to beat the bat, and you need the edge. So rather than just going with this theatric swing and beating the bat by 5 feet, I used to occasionally throw the wobble seam in there and find that I used to get wickets. So, these are things that a bowler like Dale Steyn is saying. It is quite amazing to see how he too had to figure out ways to sort of make the subtle adjustment and change and take advice from people who had bowled there. So I think, it's an art. It's an art to bowl in England, to find a way to control this swing, to bowl with the Duke's ball. So it's a big challenge. I'm pretty sure that the Indian bowlers would have learnt a lot from 2018, and hopefully, I mean, they haven't got that much of practice, but they'll warm up match, and I'm sure they've been doing a lot of practice in the nets and indoor. Bharat Arun must be putting them to their paces. I mean, so other than that, it's quite strange that we can't talk too much about selection and players. I mean, who knows what is going to happen tomorrow? There could be a lot of changes itself, but as usual, it'll come down to, again, there will be the Ashwin Jadeja debate. I don't know whether the team is going to be in a go with only Jadeja with his batting or anything, but we can't really say. I mean, I think Ashwin bowled so well in sort of the World Test Championship final, and
in the practice games,
also,
right?
Practice games. He's also been bowling in county, right? He's been getting a lot of wickets. So I think Ashwin, I would definitely go with Ashwin as the first spinner, and I hope the team does too. And I guess you guys will agree too.
Yeah,
there's nothing to disagree here. I'll play Ashwin even after he retires.
But England kind of have a same problem. I think England have a problem where their top 5 itself is like slightly on a shaky ground, right? Like, because Dom Bess and Zach, between Dom Bess, I think I don't say will, but I think he should lose his place to Haseeb Hameed, because Hameed looked like $1 million in that practice game against India when he scored that 100. Yeah, and I've always been impressed of his batting talent. So it would be my preference. I don't know what their preference is.
No, he looked $1 million when he came to India. You remember?
Yeah.
Goodness. He was
like
impressive.
The future of English batting at that time. That's how it was touted.
Yeah, and so I would not be surprised if he and Burns open. That leaves the third spot open to either Zach Crawley or Dan Lawrence or even Oli Pope. I don't know what they'll do. Or even Johnny Bairstow. That's their squad, I think, apparently. So
Bob is still not sure. Even he's injured, so he may not even make it to the team, at least for the first test.
Yeah. So number 3 is open. Number 4 is obviously Root. Number 5 would have been Ben Stokes. Now that is open, right? 6 would be Butler because they would want him to keep. And 7 to 11, they would have to pick 2 all-rounders or let's say 1 all-rounder and 3 bowlers, or 2 all-rounders, 2 bowlers. That is up to them. So
I guess Jofra is fit, right?
Jofra is not there. He's not in the squad.
Jofra is not there. Okay, then that leaves a.
So it'll be Sam Curran for 1 all-rounder. Then you will have
Ollie Robinson
and Anderson and
so the problem
Mark
is
Wood abroad. They'll play one of Anderson and Broad and Mark Wood.
Because they have to play Broad. I mean, Mark Wood, because he's the only guy, I think, in that squad who can hit 140, 150 consistently. Yeah. So they would want the pace. And between Broad and Anderson, would they play both of them? Then that's 3 slots gone. Then what will they do with the all-rounders is the question. Ollie Robinson and Sam Curran, or Ollie Robinson or Sam Curran. I don't know how they go about it. But the problem there is not the lower
But then
order.
they can play 5 bowlers. If Ollie Robinson and Curran are playing, they'll play 5 bowlers.
Yeah, let's say if they play 5 bowlers and then there's a question of Jack Leach, right? Like, would they play Jack Leach? Where would they play him? Right? 3 bowlers and 2 all-rounders already make a 5 bowling slot. So Jack Leach is a problem that they will have to figure out. And they have slightly inexperienced batting order at the top. So Root is the one who's holding it together. Rory Burns has been in good form for the last 2 series of 3-4 matches. That's about it, right? Like, there's not much to write about Zach Crawley, Dan Lawrence. They've been on again, off again, some 50 in 1 innings, and then disappointing.
So I think for the first 2 tests, they may go with the New Zealand template in the World Test Championship final. Basically, no spinner. Just pick your medium pacers and get your all-rounders and things. So Leach may make it only later if the pitches tend to get a little more spin-friendly and
just about the oval, I guess. Yeah.
Oval, maybe. I don't know. Isn't there a match in the 4th test is where?
Oval, right?
But yeah. So maybe. So but it seems like the riches that they have, again, they have a problem of plenty in terms of the pace bowling and all-rounder department. So with Stokes going out, it could actually be a good thing for them in terms of making things easier.
That will make things easier, but I mean, their top order is slightly weaker compared to, let's say, the Indian top order. That's the problem. But the advantage they have is they can pad their middle order and lower middle order with people, make it difficult for Indian bowlers to get them on.
You are seeming confident that who the Indian top order is. Who is the Indian top order, by the way? Who is going to open?
Mayank and the other guy, right?
Abhimanyu Ishwaran. Please get Abhimanyu Ishwaran.
Anyway, Abhimanyu Ishwaran and that other guy from Mumbai.
They'll play either Mayank or Prithvi.
That upcoming Mumbai batsman.
Oh, the captain, you mean? Okay.
I forget his name. Some new guy, man, from Mumbai they have picked.
No, he doesn't play well in Sena, so they'll drop him.
No, wait. 1 minute. We have Ishwaran, we have Prithvi Shaw, we have Rohit, and we have KL, right?
No, KL is not going to open. He will, if at all, he'll play as a middle order bat. I think that they're clear about. So it'll be Rohit at one end, and unless you guys disagree.
Oh yeah, Rohit Sharma. Right, now I remember the guy's name. Yeah, thanks, Mahesh.
By the way, did you guys notice he was a captain for the tour game? He got out to a single digit in the first innings and he didn't bat in the second innings.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that at all. Okay.
Yeah. Very slyly he sent in somebody else because he was too scared to face.
That is because I think Rahul Dravid sent a message to the Indian team and asked him to be selfess. So thanks to Dravid.
Then KL Rahul went and scored.
Also, Rishabh Pant put out a quote today saying that whenever I want to talk about things outside cricket, I talk to Rohit Sharma. But when I have to talk technique, I talk to Virat Kohli. So everybody is least me like, technique is all that matters. That's all you need to talk about.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's their 5, right? Like Mayank.
No, but who's going to be the second?
Wait.
I think they'll go with Mayank.
I think they will go with Mayank, but I don't think they should go with Mayank. Did you see it's the same. It's like he's getting out in pretty much the same way in that feet basically just comes in much later after the ball has even like hit the pad. I mean, there is a clear technical sort of thing there. I mean, he must have worked on it, and he must be.
No, logically speaking, they should go back to Prithvi, because they dropped Prithvi after one test in Australia. Before that, he wasn't too bad in New Zealand. Logically speaking, they should give him another chance. But personally, I would love to see Abhimanyu Ishwaran get in a chance at some stage through the series. He looks very, very organized. He looks very impressive based on whatever I've seen in the Ranji Trophy, and I would love to see him back.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since Ishwaran got his chance. I mean, he's been in line for a long time, consistently scoring in Ranji Trophy. So, yeah, I mean, I think 3, 4, 5 are set as of now, as we speak. 6, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, 5 itself is apparently he still has a hamstring niggle. So it's like Rahane is not 100% starter.
Oh, so could be Vihari there then.
Vihari also.
Could be Rahul also.
Could be Rahul or Vihari. Okay. Yeah. So Rahul or Vihari at 5, if not Rahane, that is. 6, I'm assuming, will be Pant. With 7, 8, I mean, with the 5 bowlers after that. But let's see how that goes. I mean, if they go with Ashwin at 7, then I'm thinking 4 seamers, but maybe they go with 3 seamers and 2 spinners as well, with Jadeja propping up the batting, or Shardul. I mean, as we discussed, that is another juggling act that they have to figure out what to do.
I think they'll go with Shardul, at least for the first test. They'll try and see how that adding the swing bowler works in these conditions.
Yeah, I think CSK can only have certain number of players in the team, right? So Jadeja or Shardul, I think they can't have both.
The CSK quota.
Hey, Pujara, man.
Oh, I'm aware.
What the hell? Dude.
No. You're getting it wrong, Ashoka. It's the opposite. Pujara belongs to the India quota in CSK.
Has Pujara even played a single match for CSK?
No. 7 games only they did, right? 7 or 8 games only. Then...
Oh, so he'll come in for the final.
Yeah.
When it matters.
Yeah, you guys said Murli Vijay is not fit for T20. He showed it right in the finals century. Same way, Pujara.
Dude, picking Pujara for IPL was like one of the biggest jokes ever. That guy could have gone and played county cricket in UK instead of picking him as some consolation prize and putting him on the bench.
That is also the problem of the death of Test cricket narrative, where a guy who makes $1 million a year, Cricinfo projects him as a poor guy. Like, how many sportsmen in the world make $1 million a year? I mean, you're talking about one of the richest sportsmen in the world.
No, they are saying he should be paid more, right? I mean, why shouldn't Cheteshwar Pujara, who is one of your best test batsmen, why shouldn't he be paid more by a board that is earning so much money?
No. That's not their argument. Their argument is you should pay more for a test specialist than who play multiple formats. That makes no sense. A Kohli is equally good in test, and he is better than him in one days and T20. Why would Kohli be penalized for it?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you shouldn't penalize Kohli, but you should reward Pujara. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, more importantly, one county season per fellow went and he lost it because he had to sit on CSK bench.
No, the real test specialist in the team is Ashwin, who's got, as a cricketer, he's got an even more phenomenal record. And but somehow Pujara is like the representative of the Save the Tiger campaign.
Because Ashwin plays IPL, no? Ashwin plays IPL.
Oh, plays. Okay, yeah, right.
He still plays.
Oh, that's okay, fair enough. So it's a combination of test specialist, not IPL. But now you can't say that about Pujara as well. He's got an IPL contract.
Yeah, Puari is not playing. No, that is the problem. Yeah. Anyway, so I think we've covered some good ground. As I said, I mean, we can talk as much as we want about selection, but then everything could fall apart because of this thing. We did talk a bit about the lower order problem. We covered that. I mean, I'll link a piece that Karthik Krishnaswamy wrote saying how it was a problem for India in 2018 when their tailenders couldn't really score too much. Compared to England, and it could continue to be a problem here. So let's see how it goes. Anyway, so the first test starts on in a few days, and hopefully we'll convene again either after that or after the first 2 tests to do a bit of a review. Ideally, we'd like to review every test, but all depends on timings and flexibility. So anyway, anything else to add, guys? Final thoughts?
How can we close a preview without prediction? Come on, especially in COVID where everything is an outlier series.
Are you serious? You're predicting now, is it? Okay, I've retired.
No, KD hates it. KD hates it. We should have got KD and asked him to predict.
I mean, I don't think there is, in normal times itself, prediction is such a crazy game. In these times, I'm like, dude, I mean, if at all,
It's not like your track record in normal times is great. It's okay. There's nothing at
it's terrible.
stake.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing at stake. If the
I'm
series,
putting 3-1 India, man. Done. Finished.
are you serious?
Yeah, why not?
Wow. Okay, you're like, okay, who cares? Nobody will remember this after now anyway.
Yeah, anyways, so 3-1 India. Someone else asked me also. I said 3-1 India. Why? I don't know, but feels like 3-1 India.
So you're saying
Didn't
one
you say
test
the
will be a
same for
draw?
2018 also?
No, I said for 2018, I said 3-1 England, but I was wrong there. 4-1 England. So
That's okay. 3-1, 4-1, fair enough. Close. But you're saying one test will be a draw.
yeah, looks like, man. Or some rain will happen. I mean, this is England after all.
England.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Mahesh.
I will go with 3-2 England.
Yeah. I was also going more towards England. I'll probably go... okay, let me go 2-2. Let me say 2-2 and 1 draw. So that way India will retain the Pataudi trophy or whatever that trophy is called now. I think it's still called the Pataudi trophy. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, on that note, I mean, the guy who ended up winning the previous series against England, Akshar Patel, is not even in England, I think. So
No, he's there in the squad. He's there in the squad.
Yeah. Okay. Is there in the squad? Okay. So sorry, I've not been keeping track, but let's see if he plays a part. For never know. I mean, with COVID and injuries and quarantine, never know. Akshar Patel may make a grand entry, have a part to play in this series as well. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. You can support us, as I said, by going to ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/81allout. You can set up a recurring monthly payment, or you can put in a one-time contribution. Whatever you put in, we're extremely thankful. Also, please rate and review our podcast. Tell everyone that you know. If you like the podcast, then it really helps if more people know about it. Tweet out past episodes. All our episodes are in our website, 81allout.com. You can go and binge listen to how many ever you want. Many long episodes. Many are 2+ hours. So in case you're bored, don't tell us that you're bored, because we have given you enough material to keep you occupied. Hopefully we can put out another podcast sometime soon. And thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining, Mahesh and Ashok.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for 2. India at home. Lords goes wild.